Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi Dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today we're going to examine an important economic statement that has attracted attention among analysts, investors, and followers of the Iraqi Dinar. The statement comes from an economic expert who addressed concerns surrounding a hypothetical but very serious geopolitical scenario: the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. According to the expert, even if such a disruption were to occur, Iraq's financial system, particularly the central bank, would still be capable of providing financing for a full year, and the value of the dollar within Iraq would not be significantly affected. To understand why this statement is important, we first need to briefly explain why the Strait of Hormuz matters to global and regional economies. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most strategically important shipping routes in the world. A large percentage of global oil exports pass through this narrow waterway located between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. Countries such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, and Iraq depend on this route for a significant portion of their energy exports. Whenever discussions arise about the possibility of the Strait of Hormuz being closed, whether due to geopolitical tensions, military conflict, or regional instability, it naturally raises concerns about oil supply disruptions, energy prices, and the economic stability of oil-producing nations. For Iraq in particular, oil exports are the backbone of the national economy. Oil revenues represent the majority of government income and are a key source of foreign currency entering the country. This is why the expert's statement is significant. The claim that Iraq's central bank could continue financing the country for an entire year, even if the Strait of Hormuz were closed, suggests that Iraq currently holds a strong financial buffer. This buffer likely refers to the country's foreign currency reserves, which are primarily managed by the Central Bank of Iraq. Foreign currency reserves are essentially the financial safety net of a country. They consist of assets such as US dollars, gold, and other foreign currencies that a central bank holds to stabilize the national currency, support imports, and manage economic shocks. In Iraq's case, strong oil revenues in recent years have contributed to a significant buildup of these reserves. When oil prices are relatively high and export volumes remain stable, Iraq earns large amounts of foreign currency, mostly in US dollars. These funds are deposited into government accounts and eventually become part of the broader financial system managed by the central bank. The bank then uses these reserves to regulate the exchange rate of the Iraqi dinar and to finance imports that are essential for the Iraqi economy. The expert's statement that the central bank could finance the country for a year suggests that Iraq's reserves are currently strong enough to cover government spending, support the banking system, and maintain currency stability even during a major regional disruption. This point is particularly relevant for those who closely follow the Iraqi dinar exchange rate. Stability of the currency depends heavily on the availability of foreign reserves. When reserves are strong, the central bank has the ability to intervene in currency markets, provide liquidity, and prevent extreme volatility. Over the past several years, the Central Bank of Iraq has worked to strengthen its reserve position. Reports from international financial institutions have indicated that Iraq's reserves have reached levels that provide multiple months, often more than a year, of import coverage. This means the country can continue paying for essential goods such as food, medicine, and industrial supplies, even if export revenues temporarily decline. In addition to reserve accumulation, Iraq has also implemented reforms in its currency management system. One of the most important tools used by the central bank is the foreign currency auction mechanism. Through this system, Iraqi banks and businesses can access US dollars to pay for imports. This process helps maintain stability in the exchange rate between the Iraqi dinar and the US dollar. The experts comment that the dollar will not be affected likely refers to the stability of this exchange system. Even in a scenario where global shipping routes are disrupted, the presence of strong reserves allows the central bank to continue supplying dollars to the domestic market. If the bank can maintain that supply, It reduces the risk of sudden spikes in the local dollar exchange rate. In countries where reserves are weak, any disruption to foreign currency inflows can quickly cause the national currency to depreciate. But when reserves are large, central banks have the flexibility to stabilize markets during periods of uncertainty. For followers of the Iraqi dinar, this is an important distinction. The value of the dinar is not determined solely by oil exports in the short term. Instead, it is influenced by a combination of factors including reserves, monetary policy, inflation control, government spending, and economic confidence. The statement by the economic experts suggests that Iraq's financial institutions are better prepared today than they were in the past to handle external shocks. Over the last decade, Iraq has experienced multiple crises including oil price collapses, security challenges, and global economic disruptions. Each of these events forced policymakers to improve financial safeguards and strengthen economic planning. In the short term, the reassurance that Iraq could sustain financing for a year provides a level of confidence for markets and economic observers. Even if geopolitical tensions temporarily affect regional trade routes, the government would still have the ability to fund essential operations, pay salaries, and maintain core services. Maintaining those basic functions is crucial because economic instability often begins when governments lose the ability to meet financial obligations. If public sector salaries are delayed or if imports are disrupted, confidence in the national currency can quickly decline. By maintaining strong reserves, Iraq reduces the likelihood of such scenarios. For the Iraqi dinar specifically, short-term stability is closely tied to the central bank's exchange rate policy. The bank currently manages the dinar through a controlled exchange system rather than allowing a completely free, floating currency. This managed approach gives the central bank more direct control over fluctuations. If the central bank has sufficient dollar reserves, it can continue supporting the current exchange structure even during regional disruptions. That is likely why the expert emphasized that the dollar within Iraq would not be significantly affected. However, it is also important to approach such statements with realistic economic understanding. Even if Iraq has the capacity to finance operations for a year, long-term disruptions to global energy markets could still create challenges. A prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz would affect global oil supply, shipping costs, and international trade patterns. For Iraq, any long-term disruption that limits export capacity could eventually reduce government revenues. Oil exports are the primary source of foreign currency entering the Iraqi economy. If exports decline for an extended period, the government would eventually need to rely more heavily on reserves. That is why economic experts often emphasize diversification of the economy. Iraq has made progress in rebuilding infrastructure and expanding sectors such as agriculture, industry, and services, but oil still dominates the economic structure. Developing alternative revenue streams remains one of the country's most important long-term goals. Another factor to consider is the role of international partnerships. Iraq's financial system is connected to global institutions, including international banks and financial organizations. Maintaining transparency, compliance with financial regulations, and stable banking practices helps ensure that Iraq can continue participating in global trade even during regional uncertainty. The central bank has also implemented measures to strengthen financial monitoring and reduce illicit currency flows. These steps are designed to align Iraq's banking system with international standards and improve the efficiency of foreign exchange transactions. For those who follow Iraqi dinar developments, these structural improvements are often more important than short-term rumors or speculation. Currency stability typically depends on consistent policy management, strong reserves, and economic reform rather than sudden dramatic changes. The expert's statement essentially highlights confidence in Iraq's current financial position. Having the capacity to finance government operations for a full year without relying on immediate export revenue indicates that the country has built a meaningful financial cushion. This cushion is particularly valuable in a region where geopolitical tensions can sometimes create unexpected economic shocks. By maintaining strong reserves and disciplined monetary policy, the central bank increases its ability to respond to these events calmly and effectively. From a market perspective, confidence is one of the most powerful stabilizing forces. When businesses, banks, and citizens believe that the central bank has the resources to manage crisis, they are less likely to panic during periods of uncertainty. This reduces the risk of currency volatility and helps maintain overall economic stability. Looking toward the long term, Iraq's economic outlook will continue to depend on several key factors. These include oil market trends, government fiscal discipline, banking sector reforms, and the continued development of non-oil industries. If Iraq can continue strengthening its financial institutions and expanding economic diversification, the stability of the Iraqi dinar could gradually improve over time. However, currency values evolve slowly in most developing economies and are influenced by many complex economic indicators. For viewers and followers of Iraqi Dinar News, the most responsible approach is to focus on credible economic developments rather than speculation. Statements from experts about reserve strength and financial preparedness are valuable because they reflect measurable economic indicators. In this case, the key takeaway from the expert's statement is that Iraq's central bank appears to be well positioned to handle short-term external disruptions, even in extreme scenarios such as a temporary closure of a major global shipping route. That level of preparedness reflects years of effort to rebuild financial stability after periods of economic volatility. While challenges still exist, the presence of strong reserves and structured monetary policy provides a foundation for continued stability. As always, it is important to remember that economic forecasts and expert opinions are part of an ongoing analysis of evolving conditions. Markets, geopolitical events, and policy decisions can all influence economic outcomes over time. Thank you for watching Iraqi Dinar News. If you want to stay updated with responsible, factual, and balanced analysis about Iraq's economy and the Iraqi dinar, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And as a final reminder, the information presented in this video is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial or investment advice. Always conduct your own research and consult with qualified financial professionals before making any financial decisions.